That sharp knot of panic you feel while doom scrolling at 3 a.m. stems from a logic error in our biological coding. For 14,000 years, the human nervous system has been running a survival program designed for the African savanna. Back then, treating every rustling leaf as a lethal threat kept us alive. Today, we have integrated that saber-tooth response into civilization itself, dressing up chronic stress as ambition, productivity, and the right to be offended. This is the state of Homo panicus. In this configuration, the brain's default mode network is trapped in a permanent overdrive loop, obsessing over past regrets and future threats to maintain a sense of a separate, vulnerable self. The physiological data reflects this constant state of alarm. Cortisol levels remain elevated, systemic inflammation becomes the internal weather, and telomeres, the protective caps on our DNA, burn down prematurely. We are witnessing biological wetware, capable of processing the complexities of a galaxy, breaking down under the weight of ancient survival malware. The next configuration of the human operating system is already present in our biology. It is simply waiting for the old story of the threatened me to be deleted. This change occurs through recognition rather than force. When we look closely at the ego, we find it isn't a solid entity that needs to be destroyed, but a useful fiction that has outlived its purpose. Attempting to fix the mind through spiritual discipline often just adds another layer of effort to the ego's defense. The internal alarm loses its authority only when we stop arguing with it and see it as legacy code guarding a treasure that isn't actually there. Ancient figures like the Buddha or Lao Tzu achieved a state of splendor by withdrawing their attention from this fight-or-flight feedback loop until the entire program collapsed, returning the nervous system to its original settings. We are currently living through a historic convergence, where ancient sutras and modern fMRI scanners are mapping the exact same neural territory. This data from researchers like Sarah Lazar and Judson Brewer illustrates the physical shift. Meditation physically thickens the brain's attention networks and deactivates the default mode network, mirroring the states described in non-dual traditions for millennia. Richard Davidson's work with practitioners like the monk shown here reveals that their brainwaves achieve a state of gamma coherence. Instead of the usual scattered mental noise, their neural activity looks more like a focused laser. As shown on this dashboard, the shift reaches deep into our biology. Inflammatory cytokines plummet, and the vagus nerve begins to pulse at 0.1 Hz, a golden frequency where the heart, brain, and gut function in total coherence. The data suggests that spiritual awakening represents a specific, measurable shift in the human body's baseline state. The transition into this new baseline, Homo lucidus, begins with a strange absence. The background static of self-concern simply stops. Daily life becomes an exercise in co-regulation. A parent no longer reacts to a child's tantrum with their own. Instead, they provide a stable neural anchor. At work, complex problems are solved with effortless precision because there is no imposter present to second-guess the process. External stressors like heavy traffic are recontextualized as simple weather. Because the system no longer perceives a threat to its identity, the fight-or-flight response never triggers, allowing the individual to remain in a state of spontaneous presence. This shift transforms existence into a state of effortless integration with reality. As individual nervous systems stabilize, the aggregate effects begin to alter the collective. This physiological shift acts as the foundation for a more mature species. When citizens no longer require an external threat to feel a sense of identity, the traditional requirement for national enemies dissolves. If internal coherence becomes the primary metric of well-being, economic models naturally shift their focus from endless production to biodiversity and long-term stability. Tonight, before you sleep, lie down and ask yourself one question. What would this moment feel like if there were no one here to defend? Do not look for an answer. Simply let the silence of the question swallow the questioner. The quiet presence that remains after the noise stops is the original setting of the species, waiting for the old program to crash into splendor.